So hello everyone and welcome to the Talking Stick Show. So this week I am joined by a special guest and we have Kalyani Ma Mutki. Hello, how are you doing?
Hi Dale, I'm great, thank you.
Good, good.
Thank you for moving the date and time of the show to today because my internet was just not good in the French countryside on Monday.
It's funny how that works out, and it presented a bit of work on my side to kind of sometimes things don't go as planned in our reality, and we do have a plan. Sometimes things can completely change. So yeah, I'm glad it's all sorted now.
Yeah, and I was with it too because it's very much the way I consider life. It's like, okay, I could go against things and try and fight and get frustrated and try despite all the signs around and say, okay, I will do it on Monday because that's the date he gave me. And I thought, well, actually, I know it will just be very frustrating and might not even work.
Yeah.
So let's just be with what is, and that's what Unfolded is being here, which means I'm joining you from another place which has a great internet. And,
beautiful. And we've been friends on Facebook for a while, and I've seen you do a lot of posts, and I've been having an eye on what you've been doing. So I kept saying to myself, I've got to get her Kalyani on the show at some point.
Yeah, great. And I know we've got a lot of joint friends, and I've seen you do shows with them as well. So yeah, it's good to connect in this way.
Yeah, I'm glad. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. So let's talk a little bit about yourself first. So if you can introduce yourself for those who are watching who haven't heard any of your material. So what are you up to and what do you do in this sense?
What's going up in my weird and wonderful world? Well, I'm Kalyani Ma Mutki. That's my spiritual name that was given to me 10 years ago now by my Tantra teacher at the time. And Kalyani means beautiful, auspicious, blessed bliss. And that's the energy that she felt into me. And that's the energy I'm using in the work I do. That's why I'm specifically using this name for as a transformational coach. So I work with people to firmly but deeply lovingly help them face their shadows so that they can really open to life, open to their birthright, which is making the most of this life now. And it doesn't mean that challenges don't happen. It doesn't mean that you live on your little cloud. It means that you are the one who chooses how to respond to what happens to you. And that's my way of living, that's my philosophy, and that's what has led me to where I am today, because I've had a big change of life in the last couple of years, let's say.
Lovely. And so let's talk a little bit about your story then. You're currently in France at the moment, are you?
Yes, so I'm French. And I left France to go and study in England 30 years ago and never left. So I was in Yorkshire for a long time. And would you believe I had a very high business post in a corporate place?
Yeah. So what was that doing?
I was a marketing manager in a company. And I did that for a few years, and I had a big awakening in me when I had my first child, when I was pregnant with my first child. She's now 20. And before, I had really grown up in a very traditional French family, quite Catholic, and where the values were values of normal society. And I was, pursuing those values, but really with hindsight, now I can see I was very much living in my mental sphere. just only, and wanting to achieve, pushing myself, and getting pregnant was the catalyst for me to really come and land in my body and realize that, wow, this body is doing things that I can't control. Controls it. And actually it has its wisdom, and it started to make me question things. And from that point onwards, I went on to working part-time while I developed other capacities. I trained as an aromatherapist, a massage therapist, a healer, and that led me to Tantra and working a lot with sexuality and the shadows around that. And today there I am, including all of that, but focusing on how the shadows, the points that are painful, the points that are recurring, are the ones that interest me, because they're for me where the deepest and quickest transformation can happen. So after a very loving but traditional marriage, I was married 21 years. I decided to leave my old life and come back to France and settle here. And that's where it has that dream aspect for a lot of people who follow my journey, because I'm now living in the south of France, which is where I've been really called. I've been called here by, if I look at it, why? By the Black Virgin, by the energy of the Black Virgin, which is the dark, sacred feminine. And this is where my energy is now deeply aligned for its highest empowerment and being of service to people. So I have a place called La Source. La Source because it has its beautiful pure water well, but also as a reference to Source, to our connection with Source in all of us. And it has a really strong telluric energy there. My French accent is coming back. And really people arrive there and feel something, feel embraced, feel welcome, and it has deep, loving, transformational capacity there. Unfortunately, we haven't had many English visitors since we've opened. I just can't wait for you to come, for people who listen to you, for all our friends, for people who've worked with me, because it's a place where you can really drop deep and be with what wants to be with what is, and feel safe. I think you know how important it is for people to drop into their healing to feel safe. If not, there's resistance all the time.
So let's talk a little bit about that. When you talked about what drew you to that land and the Black Mary, and explain for the listeners a little bit about what does that mean, and go a bit more depth into that definition.
Yeah, for me, a lot of things are the same, but simply get transformed through time, through centuries. And for me, the energy of the Black Madonna is the original feminine energy that was there, matriarchal energy that was there, that has then been transformed by a lot of the Catholics when it took over Europe. And then they turned a lot of that into, the purified Virgin Mary. But one aspect of the feminine is that dark, shadowy area in all of us. We the womb space is also dark. holding, protective, and you have that divine spark that goes in it, but it has to remain dark, protective, to let the miracle, the magical of life building happening. So I attended, I had been attracted by the Black Madonna and the mysteries of the dark feminine, as in the feminine that, you know, it's that aspect of the tough love. You can be deeply loving, but you don't take any bullshit. It's like
boundaries.
yeah, and it's that that says, okay, life is what it is. Be with it, but be fully with it. Embrace it. Embrace all of yourself, all your aspect, and let what you've been here for, what when your soul chose to embody, what did it come for? What was it that was deeply calling it to make this journey, to come to this heavier plane and live that? So that dark feminine for me goes into embracing all of that, but also all the mud.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of these aspects of the Black Virgin, La Vierge Noire is the name in French. And we're just saying the word in French. I'm just feeling the...
I love the French accent. I really do. It's challenging, but I love it.
So these aspects of the Vierge Noire are very much present here in the south of France, because they couldn't, the church couldn't get rid of them. People kept statues, some of them in old wood. I think the oldest still that people have found dates back to about the 12th century. And they have, for me, they have that rawness, that realness, that's deeply powerful, deeply real.
So
because we have that in us. I resonate with it deeply.
Lovely. So looking into this, it feels like it's that side a lot of people do not confront themselves and realize they have. That I tend to find that when I grew up through my awakening in 2012 was there was so much, say, the light industry or anything like that, the light working industry, that all you saw was light and everything was just light, and it was about sending light all the time. But when I grew on my spiritual journey, I kind of found the false light in between it all, where there was kind of like it was the teachings of the light, but for me, there was too much of it going on and not enough owning and actually experiencing and talking about the darker side of us. And I went through that. I'd call it the light worker's death when I was in 2012, 2013. And I completely had a bit of a breakdown because I thought I was all like love and light and I had nothing to heal and stuff like that. But I was wrong.
Yeah, I've been there too. You see, for me, it's about balance. Because as you want to make more room within you for the light, you have to go and address the shadows. And those shadows are there not to be ignored. They're there because they're things that we haven't assimilated, we haven't got the lesson, the wisdom, and they're calling to be seen, to be met. Plus, as as light workers, for me, we're only as good as the stuff that we've done on ourselves so that we can then help others. So if we are the one that's just in the light all the time and doesn't deal with shadows, there's going to be a limited number of people we can help. Essentially, because the shadows, once the light is going to shift the shadows, that's for sure.
Yeah, and that's it. And that's one of the many things I do in my healings, and what I'm doing on myself is each week I present myself with inner work to do, where I go back to past selves and past traumas and really work on those. And it's so great because when you do that actual work on yourself and you laser focus onto your own stuff, it really does help you in the long run, and you feel so much heaviness start coming off you, even though I've got so much work still to do and stuff coming up for me. And it's so interesting that we you are doing the tantric and talking about the sexuality healing, because that's something I've been working on like in the last week and the last few weeks. That's been my intention, was to look into my own sexuality and my relationship with my partner, so on and so forth. So it's interesting how the synchronicity brought you on.
Well, the sexuality has got that aspect where whatever you want to pretend to be, when you go into the intimacy part of being with another, that has to drop, because you can't hold it. So a lot of the material, or a lot of your wound will want to come out. And certainly being in a relationship that is focused on welcoming everything, so a real relationship, is the quickest way to enlightenment, Dale. That's for sure, because nothing gets thrown under the cover. As it is, it all comes out. And that's great, because that's, for me, that's the path of growing. But it's beautiful when that growing can be together with a partner, because in parallel to the shadows being seen, dealt with, understood, there's a lot of room for love to grow, and that love is beautiful, that love is powerful. And that's where am I in my journey. I'm with a partner who is living with me, sharing my life at La Source, and he's also a coach himself, and a beautiful, loving person that shares his love in a lot of different ways. And one way is him sharing his love through the food, the cooking, the healing of the food at La Source. But the journey for us, has been momentous. Momentous.
So let's go into a bit of the sexuality, the concept. So let's have a look into what the world portrays as normal sexuality, and let's look into a few of the the wounded parts of ourselves, and let's kind of dissect it a little bit. So what would you say that for when you're growing up and just listening to the media or listening to everything else, what's that negative, what type of negative things do you pick up from the reality, how it is at the moment, and how can we change that?
What I saw once I removed my old vision glasses of society was how all the patterns of the patriarchy are still very much trying to influence what is portrayed of sexuality. Whereas when both the man and the woman open themselves to simply trusting their bodies, saying yes to what is, but with awareness, with consciousness all the time, the body knows. For me, a very important part is that we have a gender that we are born with, but we have also got within us the opposite. So I am a woman, but I also have an inner masculine. And they are both wanting to deeply come into a loving relationship, my inner feminine, my inner masculine. And both have qualities that want to shine, and their qualities attract them. So for me, what is happening on the outer, in my outer relationship, is also a reflection of what's happening in my inner relationship. So in my sexuality, when there are places of withdrawals, of mistrust, of use or abuse. What's very important for me in the work, how I approach the work, is I don't project on the other. I don't say to my partner, it's your fault, you know, you're making me feel like that. Ooh, go away. It's like, okay, that's interesting. What's happening? And I go within and I say, okay, what is happening? What is my body telling me? Where is the wound that was there hiding? And all those wounds there, you'll know, are linked often to our past, sometimes also to our past lives. They are all things that are calling to be healed, healed with love, healed with recognition. So it calls for patience. It calls for not rushing. And in a partner relationship, when something like that arises, for me, it's to say, okay, to say to the other person, don't take it personally. It may arise because of something we're doing, but that's the beauty, that's the pearl, because it's showing something in me that's calling for healing, and I take responsibility to go and do the work. And at that moment, my partner has a choice, either to say, okay, I give you the space, I let you go and do your work, and I don't take it personally. I long for you, yes, but I know that when the work is done, you will come back shinier. You will come back ready, more ready for love. And that's beautiful. Or the other partner can say, oh yeah, but I need you, I want to do things, and I want, even worse, I want to heal you. No, don't. Each of you in a partnership, in a relationship, have got to do your own work, taking your own responsibilities. And then you get out of that entanglement, out of that neediness, and you can really be in the fertile ground for love.
And
how
that's
does
great.
that resonate with you and what you're living?
That resonates really well, because some of the work I do as well with the patriarch society, and kind of the where I'm living at the moment actually is to have like an army base down there, and there's that imprint of, from this lifetime, many lifetimes before, of the patriot programming and the conditioning for women and how women are treated. So it's kind of like dealing with that and understanding it and healing it. And I feel there's quite a few different scenarios. So say if you have a partner who's a narcissist, or then that's unhealthy, you have to walk away. But there are quite a few relationships I've found in my life where people have the ability to heal themselves and for the relationship to go on, but parts of themselves just can't really deal with relationships. So let's talk a little bit about that side of ourselves for those people who can't hold down relationships, because I know there's quite a few people out there who have tried and tried and tried, and they just cannot find the right lover or the right person to co-create with and feel safe and happy.
Stop looking. Stop looking for the other to have the solution to love. It's really hard to hear. But if somebody is in that kind of repeat pattern, you have to really stop and say, if I keep doing the same things are going to happen again. It's normal. So what can you do to stop that happening? Is that first you stop calling, you stop putting that energy out there of, I'm going to sound harsh, but of neediness. And you say, okay, it hurts when I go inside and I feel that void. It really hurts and I don't like it. It's not comfortable. But if I take a deep breath, stop for a moment, and I'm doing it at the same time, and I go and really become present to that part of me that is in pain, what is that part of me saying? And then I take the time to bring what is called for to that part of me. And I might be able to do it on my own, or I might need the help of a therapist to support me with that. But I do it, and I don't rush that. And then when that part of me, the way I'm feeling it, gets filled up with love again, in effect, the void is gone and it's replaced with love. Then I engage on the outer, I engage again in the world. And I can look around, and I will look and I will find things that look quite different. So the partners that I used to look for and find attractive, actually, that's going to drop. And I can then be open to who the universe has in mind for a true partner. And a true partner for me is not somebody who's with whom it's all going to be all lovey-dovey 100% of the time. A true partner is going to be somebody where there is that deep potential for love to grow, but also that ruffling so that there is growth for both partners. Because love will only grow where the shadows have been dealt with. So after the honeymoon period, those shadows feel safe to come up again. They go, oh. So to people who really long for a partner, I would say go within and sense what is behind that longing. Because it's also far too unfair, far too difficult to put that responsibility on the other, on the partner, to say, you're gonna be the one that's gonna make me feel happy.
And that's something. There was a huge, when I talked about going through the light work as death in 2013, there was the twin flame, which I have my own opinion on the twin flame journey. I do feel that it disempowers people to find themselves in some points. I'm not saying for everyone, but I've seen it firsthand that it can destroy people because they're that obsessed about finding something external, but not looking to truly find themselves, and everything, like you say, will fall into place.
Yeah. It's about being deeply honest and authentic towards ourselves and say, okay, why is it there? What is the wound? And we always get back to it eventually. I can see with myself and with my client, what's the wound in my little childhood that's unconsciously making me a puppet? And so once that drops, you can say, it's like, okay, this is me, and we start again from today. What's out there? Who can I be with where I can just be myself, and that there isn't that dependency? So you go into a relationship free. That's when it's really creative, juicy, enjoyable. And that's what a relationship is about. And yes, there'll be things that the other person does that you don't like. That's your stuff. That's not theirs. Let them be themselves and be yourself. Dare to be yourself. Don't make loving yourself dependent on another.
So let's expand a little bit about on codependency, because that's something I've dealt with in the past, and parts of myself had to really change. So what is codependency, and how can we help heal that part of our relationship?
I think an important aspect is to first see that there is codependency. Awareness is the first step to change. So seeing, okay, why am I not happy in a relationship? What's there? And if there is that codependency, it's like, okay, why am I my partner making me feel good? Or what is it that they provide that I wouldn't dare for myself? Where am I feeling stuck with them and I feel like I can't leave? It's like, if I give you an idea, an example, of my own life. I was married 21 years. There was a lot of love, but through my I realized that I started taking a different path from my husband, who is a very traditional, caring, but a very traditional Yorkshireman. And and I was becoming more and more Kalyani, and he hadn't married Kalyani. And yeah, we could have found a middle way, but and I tried, but it didn't happen. So at some point, I realized that something was not right and I was not happy. But there was codependency. There is an aspect of codependency when you've been with somebody for many, many years. And it was for me to really question what that codependency was and work with that and feel the pain of it and do my own work to untangle, extract myself. And some aspects of it that I just could not envision myself not being married anymore was the deep weight put on marriage by my own family. How could I divorce? That was unthinkable. I married, and married was for life. And I was now dependent on that marriage to fulfill the identity of the good girl for my parents, who totally saw that, who totally believed in it, who and whom I did not want to disappoint. So I let that aspect fuel my codependency in the marriage until the day I really, really saw it, and I weighed that against my call for happiness. And I reclaimed that part of me. I healed that part of me that said, what is it you want in your life? And then I was ready to step out of the marriage. However painful that was, but I now have the life I choose to have, and my now ex-husband has got another beautiful partner that he's very happy with, I believe, and somebody who is a lot more matched to him for
That's
who
beautiful.
he is now. And that, for me, that's what love is about. Love wants to express itself in all of us, in all its forms, and the way it was between us was no longer a love that could grow.
So with you speaking, then it feels like, let's touch a little bit about freeing the divine feminine. How does divine feminine connect to what you were saying? Because for me, it felt like you were reclaiming your divine feminine power, you reclaiming your sovereignty, and finding out that. So how does the divine feminine connect to relationships and sexuality?
That's a big topic, Dale. Just that.
We could have loads of shows on it, it's fine.
Okay, so if I take it all the way at the other end, the divine feminine is all that is all that is manifest. Is all of this world, all of the emotions, all of our embodiments, for me, is the divine feminine. That's at the far, far end. And if you bring it to me, the divine feminine is how I want to be in every moment fully. It's like that. How can I embody life force to my highest capacity in every moment? That is the divine feminine. And that means, if you then refine it in every day, how can I have that energy move through me in the most fluid way? And it's about what is my yes to life in every moment, including in my sexuality. What is the yes in every moment? And that yes is also a very deep honoring of my boundaries. So that yes is also the capacity to say no when my yoni, my sex, is not feeling like being open, and then working at my yes and fully opening. So the divine feminine is calling us to our fullness. And for that fullness to happen, we also need the divine feminine. We go back to that union, because the divine masculine then create the sacred container within which all can happen. So if the divine feminine is all that is, for me, the divine masculine is the nothing that is, from which all that is emerge. And it's that constant dance between the two.
And that's a beautiful way of looking at it, to free that. For myself, I've had that where I've had to look into contracts from myself where I felt like my own divine feminine was taken away from me, because I felt like I couldn't speak and talk about my feelings. And when I was younger, growing up in a world where the masculine was portrayed as someone who was obviously a womanizer, someone who sees women as objects or kind of speaks to women in patronizing ways. So for me, growing up and seeing these so-called teachers on in the media or what you see on TV, that's your reality as you're growing up. And when you're perceiving that and when you're taking that up like a sponge when you're a child, the masculinity kind of disappears, the femininity disappears. And I've had to go back to that way, like you say, feeling both of them again and accepting who I am. And yeah, just stilling myself to be able to understand I'm divine masculine, divine feminine, and having that, not feeling not guilty, but not feeling kind of a bit embarrassed that I'm exploring my femininity and being feminine, even though I am a male.
But you see, you as a male exploring your femininity means that you are going to be able to open a lot more to that enjoyment of life, you know, to that the five senses, the tactile, the pleasure of life, which the masculine enjoy, because if not, it's very boring. It's very yes, I am still. I can do still. Look. Feel that? I can do still. But after a while, I want to be, woo!
Got it.
And I like, it's important to have both. Again, we go back to the balance. So, yourself, you will want that openness to the pleasure of life within that capacity to hold everything in stillness as well. And then when you share that with a partner, the dance becomes just awesome. Are you noticing that?
Yes.
The more you connect to your own feminine, your inner feminine capacity, your sharing with a partner becomes more full.
That's it. And for me, going off the path, because I used to go out and drink, take drugs, and everyone, and I came off that path because for me, that was me trying to find a way to find myself in a way and find a way to escape. But when I started exploring the feminine side of me, I was able to just enjoy being still, enjoy the world for what it is, and actually go, oh, that's nice, this is nice. And like, not all, and that's why I do feel that so many people are on the game where they just love to drink all the time. I do drink myself. Me and Gabrielle will share a glass of wine every few weeks, and I enjoy that as part of my human process. But on the flip side of when you're using alcohol to completely switch off because you've lost that feminine side of you, where you've lost the kind of coping techniques and the skills to really appreciate life and the trees and the birds and relationships. They're all beautiful, and it's just about us perceiving them differently.
You can just be drunk on life.
There you go. Yeah. So you studied in Tantra, didn't you? You've studied in Tantra before. So I'm very interested in, I've not really looked into much of the Tantra side. Would you be able to explain a little bit about what Tantra is and what got you onto that process?
Sure. What got me onto that process was reaching some limits in the training I had in the energy healing. At that stage, I'd done my aromatherapy, I'd done my energy healing training, and then there were some things that I was noticing in my clients that I couldn't understand what the blocks were about, why they were not progressing. And then I came across Tantra as an area that looks at all of life. And a lot of people confuse Tantra with sex. It's not. Tantra is a way of approaching life, saying yes to all its aspects. And sexuality is an aspect of life that we have been given as a birthright that is important, but it's as important in Tantra as meditation, as connection to the body, as connection to our intuition. So for me, Tantra really, I had a big yes to it when I came across it, because it had that wholesome aspect. And I was in a place where I didn't want to exclude anything more. I wanted to have that wholeness accessible within me and within the work I was doing with my clients, and that's what had been missing. So I went and trained, and yes, we look a lot at sexuality because sexuality is so repressed.
Yeah.
So we have to go and look at it because it's that big elephant in the room. And all the repression around sexuality is actually a way into looking at all these aspects of ourselves that have been shut down and to reclaim them. And I had a very powerful teacher who sadly has passed away now, who was Shakti Malan. She was South African. And the Tantra I learned with her, which covered all these aspects, she called it her totality therapy training. And it was really life-changing for me. So Tantra, yes, but I want your listeners to not believe that Tantra is just going into that titillating sexuality aspect. It's not. If you want, it's the whole lot. And you need a whole lot for the balance. If not, it's going to be overwhelming quite quickly.
And that shows you how labels can define a lot of things. It's the same with the shamanism, shamanic industry, the same with medicine industry. So many labels, and everything now can be perceived from different people in different ways. And like Tantra had that everyone thought it was the learning how to have sex differently, but there's so much more aspects to it, and it's so great for you to be able to go into those a little bit more.
Because when you start to have sex differently, all the things that have been repressed are going to want to come up. And then what do you do with them? So yes, if you want to go and play in that arena, be prepared to play with everything. If not, you're going to get burned.
Yeah. So how long have you been on this the tantric journey then? Is that when did you go on to that?
I would say about 11 years, because I'd started looking into it, and then I had the opportunity of being given my name, which I took in a beautiful ceremony, a satsang. So, and my name I've had for just over 10 years now. So yeah, I believe I needed to have a certain maturity and to have lived certain experiences before I was ready for Tantra. Of course, I regret not having come across it earlier. I think when it knocks on your door and you feel ready, it's a beautiful gift.
Beautiful. And even talking about sex, I do feel it's important to quickly talk about sex and how what's your perspective of making sure you don't become a bit obsessed with it and a bit addicted to it. How can you find that balance? Because I've experienced this before with my sexual energy. How can you find the balance and be able to be disciplined enough to make it healthy, in a sense, instead of a lot of people have sex addiction and have that drive just to have sex to feel some sort of release in themselves?
You go back to the source, so you go back to feeling the lack. So to be able to do that, if I was working with a client, I would first help them feel stillness, because that's the base. So you build your capacity to go into stillness, and I call that base. So you, feeling everything, base, drop, stop. Whew, take a breather. Okay, now that I feel ready, I go and feel the lack. Part of feeling the lack, I can take people into feeling their rush. You know, the rush that the addiction brings. What does that go and nourish? By finding out what that goes and nourish, we go behind, okay, what's wanting to be nourished? Then you go behind, you go into what is called the identity work. It's like, what is the part of you that is the one leading the addiction? What's that part of you seeking beyond the rush? What's underneath? So I always go behind to the final nugget. That's the one I work with then when we find it. That's the one we sit with. And by sitting at that point, all the things before that are linked to it, when this one gets resolved, they just melt. because that feeding point from the start is no longer there, and they don't have any more energy that feeds them. So that's one aspect. The other one is often when people, from my experience of working with people who've had that sexual addiction, it's their first and second chakra that are deeply depleted and that want to be fed. So when you start to encourage them to feel their whole chakra system and the call for balance, something can start to shift, because our sexual energy starts with the first and second chakra, but linked, anchored to the earth as well, so first chakra. But sexual energy is like the fuel that feeds our kundalini, and then the kundalini, the sexual energy moving, wants to go upwards, to go and feed all our other chakras. And then we become, as it goes up and feed all our other chakras, it's like we become brighter. And when they start to feel that it's not all about just feeding that down here, but the whole of yourself, when you don't go through, especially for men, when you don't go through ejaculation and you lose that, but you keep it within and you draw that energy upwards, it opens so much more perspective of the sacredness of our sexual energy and what can be done with it. That the addiction can fade. How does that resonate?
It's so funny because I had a reading with one of my teachers, a gentleman called Andrew Bartis, and he when he was did a reading on me, and he talked about the sexuality side of myself, the fact that I had some, like, on my base chakra and my sacral, I had this spiritual fog around it, and it was all connected to my sexuality. And it's so funny you say that, because this was only like last week, and we were going into that reading about those chakras and how had this fog around them and stuff like that. So that, yeah, it resonates very well.
Yeah.
And at the moment, I'm even on a stage of celibacy at the moment for 90 days of just putting my sexual energy into other things and kind of healing more of my side of my relationship and my partners as well. And we're going through a lot of self-healing together and going back into her past and stuff. Well, she's going to do that. So it's a very sacred time, and for us both at the moment. And we know we've got a few things to do, and it's great to be there, to be able to have someone to share it with. And like you say, making sure I do not step on her journey. She does it in her own time, and I don't want to change her in any way. When she's ready, she'll do it, and when I'm ready, I'll do it as well.
Yeah, and I really encourage you for yourself to work on that circulation upwards of your sexual energy, for you to feel that inner nourishment.
Beautiful. I will. That's so funny you say that. I was like, oh yeah. So what I've been working. I was doing it this morning before I call. I was doing some work on my sacral and my base as well, and just putting a little bit more light around that and changing it. So yeah. So thank you so much for coming on the show, and I'd love to have you on again at some point in the year, because it's been really comforting in a way speaking to you, and I like the flow and the way the conversation goes. So thank you for coming on and sharing.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, and anytime. I love to speak about all these aspects, but for me it's really about, okay, how do I bring all this work that we're doing and make it part of life? It's so that it transforms and it changes, and it makes us create. We're talking about the new world. Like, the new world is what we make, and how all these new energies, all this healing that's happening, how is that impacting my life moving forward? So that's important. So well done for also doing that on your side, doing that with your partner, because it's all these little ripples.
Yeah, beautiful. And that's so true. The for me, looking at everything before in 2013, I was seeing it as a collective awakening, but it's not a collective awakening. It's an individual journey back to the Great Spirit, and everyone has their own way back. And that was part of what we had to learn here, to do it ourselves and not do it in a collective. We all have to learn the self-mastery skills in order for us to be able to go forward onto the next stage.
Yeah, beautifully said. And we can inspire others, but it starts with us. Yeah.
Beautiful. A great ending to the show. And I'd like to thank everyone for watching the Talking Stick Show. So this marks the 30th episode of Talking Stick Show. So it's great to have this to talk about sexuality. And how can anybody get hold of you then if they want to have sessions with you?
What I'll do, I will put my link underneath when you post it. I've got my English website, which is KalyaniMaMutki.com, and I'm moving a lot of the stuff onto my La Source website. That's a lot in French to start with, but it will be bilingual as well. So I'll give both websites, and looking at La Source website can give you just some ideas, and looking at the place and go, oh my God, I need to come when you can all travel again. So it'd be great to have you.
I'd love to come over, and I do have a sense that we're not going to be traveling for a good few years.
No, don't say that.
I just feel it. I really do. But that we'll see what happens anyway. But thank you so much again, and I really enjoyed this show. I really did. It was super fun.
Great. Really nice to connect with you, Dale, and all the best, and all the best to all the listeners as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye.